Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Thursday, the 17th of August. My name is Ryan McGinlay, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Alan Morrison from Celtic by Numbers. Alan, first of all, how are you doing today?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Ryan. Another day in Celtic universe. Always good.
That's it. Yeah, plenty to discuss as always. Sometimes you wonder if there's going to be anything to talk about for the next day, and then news springs on you just out of nowhere. But there's always something to talk about with regard to Celtic. Just before we get started today, if I could direct everybody, as always, down to the ticker tape at the bottom of the screen. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. You'll be getting pieces from Alan, such as a tactical tweak Kyogo piece that he did today that is on the website. There's also a scouting report from Stuart Ross that he did a couple of weeks ago regarding Celtic's newest signing, Gustaf Lagerbielke. And there's also opinion pieces from myself, Aidan, Tony, big match reactions from the three of us, instant analysis as well. So anything that you're looking for with regard to Celtic-based journalism, it's all on the website. So if you just visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, then you'll get your fix of Celtic content. It really does help us if you subscribe. It right now it's currently at £4. £4 for 4 months, so that'll be you sorted for the first quarter of the season if you take that deal out. So please get involved. It really helps us continue to do these live videos, the pre-recorded videos for nothing. So if you subscribe to that and subscribe to the Celtic Way YouTube channel, you'll be doing us a big favour and helping us in the process. So I was wondering what we were going to talk about yesterday afternoon, and then all of a sudden it seemed as if there was a leaked photo that broke, or a leaked photo that got out of Lagerbielke, Gustaf Lagerbielke. We knew that the deal was going to get done. It was a matter of when rather than if, but that photo leaked, and then about an hour later, Celtic announced the signing of Lagerbielke on a 5-year deal from Elfsborg. If I could just bring up some of the comments that he made regarding his move to the club. He said, "It feels really good and I'm really excited and proud to be here. The first thing you think of when you hear the name Celtic is obviously the fans, the stadium and the atmosphere the fans create here, and also all the good players who have played here and who are playing here now. So I'm really excited to play with them and hopefully win a lot of games and titles." Just off the back, Alan, of this signing, I know it's been sort of mooted for about 3-4 weeks now, you could say 2-3 weeks. What's your initial opinions on Lagerbielke, and do you think he can make an instant impact on the side?
Yeah, again, listen, I won't claim or pretend I've spent hours studying video of him, but what I've read and what I've seen, I'm quite excited by this one, to be honest. I think it's on a sort of more prosaic level. It's good that we've added a wee bit of height to the team. You know, he's a big lad, 6'3". Looks like he could probably do with a bit of filling out. He's quite a slim lad. Probably needs to muscle up a little bit for the rigors of the Scottish centre forwards that'll be battering into him and all that. But I think he's quite again a bit like Carl Starfelt was, quite a sort of front foot defender in terms of very strong in duels, etc. But I think the really intriguing thing about him is his sort of long passing ability, which is a real standout. I mean, a real outlier actually in terms of the volume of longer passes the attempts with them. And if you think about how the season started, and I don't want to sort of jump to incorrect conclusions based on a 2-game sample, but what we've seen two teams in Aberdeen and Ross County really have a go at Celtic, really press forward from the front. And we've ended up with 2 very exciting games, actually, very stretched games, not quite the sort of Celtic versus the defence compact structures that we kind of got used to over the last 2 years. These have been very different. And also you've seen, I think, one of the things that Rodgers, I think, has really been enthused about on his return to Celtic is the pace that we have in the forward areas. And it looks to me as if he's trying to on occasion hit the forwards a lot quicker. And therefore there's been a massive upsurge in longer passes that Celtic have played in the first 2 games. Last season we would have averaged sort of between 30 and 40 sort of long passes in a match. Against Aberdeen, I think it shot up to nearly 70. and against Ross County and against Aberdeen, it was a similarly high figure. Some of that was because of the way that the opposition played. But coming back to Lagerbielke, he's absolutely looks made to be that sort of almost quarterback who's firing long diagonals, long passes for quick forward. So it'll be fascinating. I'm fascinated to see that aspect of his game. He does look like he's a good, solid defender in most respects. Maybe not as quick as Starfelt. That was one of Starfelt's best attributes. But probably better in the air than Starfelt, and essentially, given he's now starting to get into the Sweden national squad, it looks like we're effectively replacing an older version with a younger version. So it's got a bit of nice symmetry to that, I think.
Yeah, I know that Lustig sort of teased the fans yesterday. He was saying that you always need a Swede in the Celtic side. Are you ready for your next Swedish star? That was a nice wee touch as well. He was wearing the last kit that he wore whilst at Celtic. He was a real winner at the club. If Lagerbielke can win half of what Lustig won in his career at Celtic, then he'll be doing well. You were talking about the long balls that Lagerbielke likes to play. It seems as if Navrocki likes to do that as well. That's a real feature of both of their games. Seen that in the first game against Ross County, especially that long ball that he played over the top to Daisen Maeda, who should have done better with the chance, but I think that's just a real feature of the game, and it seems like an attribute that Rodgers and the scouting team have identified early doors to use and exploit, because Celtic have the strikers and the wingers that can get in behind. I think they're trying to exploit that. Would you agree with that sort of summation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Navrocki, I think, has done really well actually in his two games. He's settled very quickly. It's not as if the defence hasn't been under a lot of pressure as well. He's had a lot of work to do in the two games. It's not like Celtic strolled through those games and weren't really under any pressure. Aberdeen had 10 shots at goal. Both Ross County and Aberdeen, got over one expected goals. So they created chances in those games. Aberdeen had a bit of physicality up front with Majowski, and then Duke, who's a good runner and with the ball, skillful player. So there was a bit of variety there. Against Ross County, he was up against Jordan White, who we all know is a kind of no nonsense traditional sort of centre forward, and he did lose a couple of aerial battles in both those games. So I think Navrocki's that probably isn't again a massive strength, a little bit like Starfeld really, but on the other hand, as you say, his ball progression I thought was excellent. Not just in his passing, which I think was sound, and actually in the game against Ross County, he led the team in terms of progressive passes. Uh, but what I really liked about him in both games was that the opposition went man for man in midfield, and what that one of the ways you can mess with that man to man system is if somebody takes initiative and runs directly at the opposition. That leaves the markers with a real conundrum as to whether to leave their man and close down the runner, or stay with their man, and then you've got a free run. And Navrocki actually in both games I think took the ball forward out of defence really well, and I think he helped to create some confusion there in the defences. So I really encouraged by him to say that it was his first two games. I think they've been difficult games in many ways, lots of challenges, lots of threat in the game, really, because I think both, to their credit, both Ross County and Aberdeen had a right good go at Celtic. So, yeah, but overall, very good. And I think is similar in that mould. I think he's another genuinely exciting player. We've signed a lot of players from Asian markets, Japan, Korea, recently. The Swedish and sort of Polish leagues are probably a little bit sort of safer in terms of knowns, in terms of how well they'll be scouted, in terms of the benchmark of understanding what the relative strength of the teams in those league are and how you think that might scale up to playing in the Scottish league. So in that sense, although we've spent a good bit of money on both those young players, I suspect they've been very well scouted. They've come from well-known markets, And so I'm super excited to see both of them. But my only concern is that that many injuries will see them both having to play together sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think Sunday might be a perfect opportunity, and I think that's one of the positives of bringing Lagerbielke in when he is halfway through his season. He will be match fit. He will be ready to just come in and make an impact. In an ideal world, that's probably what he wants as well. He wants to come in and immediately make his mark on the team, and then it's a question of whether or not Carter Vickers can get back into the team. Now, I'm not saying that he won't instantly get back into the team, because I think he will, but it'd be a good opportunity for him to come in and really lay down what he's going to do at Celtic. If he has a good performance at Rugby Park on a plastic pitch, then it's a great first impression. And as we all know, if you're a Celtic player, a first impression can really last, as it did with Starfelt in his first game against Hearts. It took a long time for him to shake off that sort of first impression. So it would be good to see Lagerbielke, but that's not taking anything away from, I think, Stephen Welsh, who I thought had a decent second half when he came on against Aberdeen. I thought the two of them especially really showed a lot of maturity in a tough venue at Pittodrie. Aberdeen were flinging everything that they got. Yes, they didn't get as many chances on goal as they would have liked, but there were still periods in the game where they had a lot of the ball. But I thought that Welsh and Navrocki really did hold up well, especially Navrocki. I think you really did see his leadership skills come to the fore for a young player. He really took advantage of what was maybe a faltering defence. Greg Taylor isn't playing as well just now. Ralston's in there, but he's not the ideal candidate. You want Alistair Johnson in there, but he did. I don't know about you, but I felt like he really did take that sort of leadership role, and Stephen Welsh fed off that, and the two of them did a really good job in the second half.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it was one of those games where Navrocki was a bit like a ball magnet. Everything seemed to go on top of him. I mean, he led the team in terms of successful challenges, interceptions with 12. He had the most in terms of clearances, which I know clearances are a bit of the more clearances you have, it tends to indicate you're under pressure. But it's one of those things that, if you're decisive, and you're just basically clearing your lines essentially. So I wouldn't say number of clearances is a positive or a negative. It's just an interesting. You have to look at it in the context of the game. But anyway, Navrocki led the team in clearances, which suggests he's got that sort of no nonsense defending instinct about him. If in doubt, he just basically cleared his lines. I would say he also led the team in recovery, so that's basically where the opposition lose the ball. He was there to sort of pick up that loose ball. He did that 22 times, and actually Joe Hart was second with 17, which gives you some indication as to how long and direct Aberdeen were going. So, yeah, I mean, I think he definitely, like you say, he was heavily involved. His passing was decent. He won possession back 8 times and didn't give it away in any of his defensive actions. He gave away a few passes for sure. He led the team again for the second week running. He led the team in what I call pack passing. So that's progressive passes that take opponents out of the game. He was the sort of leader on that stat as well. So all of that, like you say, suggests someone who kind of took responsibility, stood up, and did what was necessary, whether it was progressing the ball, whether it was clearing lines, whether it was just getting on the end of challenges and making contact. He led on all of those sort of metrics. I think that was a pretty fine performance actually.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that in terms of Navrocki, obviously Brendan Rodgers played against him before. Just to bring that back, he played against him before when he was at Leicester to Legia Warsaw. This does seem as if it was a Brendan Rodgers. That sort of Brendan Rodgers set. I know he signs off on every single player that will be coming into the club, or you would expect that to be the case. But this seems as if it was Brendan Rodgers' first proper signing that he would have had some say in. Maybe he's a player that he remembered 2 years ago when Legia Warsaw beat Leicester 1-0 in Poland. But it seems as if he's been ready to come in instantly and make an impact. I think that they knew that Starfelt was maybe for the off for a couple of weeks, and they knew that they needed somebody in now and then another person in a couple of weeks later just to supplement that role. But yeah, I'm really impressed with Navrocki so far. I think he's going to be an ideal player for Celtic going forward, and there's plenty of upside as well with his age. He's only 22. You know, you need to remind yourself that he's 22 and he's putting in these good performances that you would expect of maybe an older player. So yeah, plenty to look forward to with regard to him. Just finally on Lagerbielke, do you think with the current centre back situation, I know Carter Vickers was taken off as a precaution, but do you think that Lagerbielke will make his Celtic debut against Kilmarnock on Sunday?
So just before I get into that, I'll try and be balanced with all of this sort of data and stats. I have to say that, Navrocki, he was partly responsible for the goal that Celtic conceded. It was incredibly unusual that Carter Vickers misread the ball and therefore was beaten to it by Duke. And I think took everybody by surprise. It looks like he was possibly hindered by his hamstring at that point. But Navrocki had Majowski at that point in his sights, and he allowed him to run off him for the sort of tap in. So there's learnings to be had in the round. It was a terrific performance, but one slip and you've conceded a goal, even at the SPFL level. But in terms of who starts on Sunday, firstly, I just hope the club are looking after Cameron Carter-Vickers, because to your point, he would be the first name on the team sheet, frankly, for me personally. I think he's that reliable, that consistent. He's easily Celtic's best defender, but we need him fit and we need him right. I've been critical of the club in the past. I think it's probably not just Celtic, but most football clubs, because of the pressure they put players on the pitch sometimes when they're not 100%. I'm not saying that was the case on Sunday. I certainly hope it wasn't. But it's disappointing to see someone kind of break down a little bit so soon after a big injury. And so I know the pitch was incredibly dry. I didn't really appreciate it at the time I was watching it. It was only when I watched it back and the comments of the players after the game that I realised how much it had on the game in terms of the ball just not running, the ball sticking. It was almost like playing on an artificial pitch in sometimes. And that might have contributed in some way to couple of soft tissue injuries that we got with the Tati as well. So my wish for Carter Vickers is we get him back, and we only put him back in the team when he's 100%. To your point, I think Welsh came on and was absolutely fine. It looks like Rodgers is a fan. It's been touch and go with Welsh the last 2 seasons. My reading of it is, would he be an automatic first choice for Celtic? I couldn't see it in the last couple of seasons, but he's the sort of player I personally would be delighted to have as a third, fourth choice centre back. I think he's got a lot of good attributes. He's young. He's a Scottish player. The other side of that is, if I'm Stephen Welsh, I'm thinking, am I going to be playing enough football at the age I'm at? There was talk of going to Serie A the summer before, and that's actually become quite a really successful and well-worn path for young Scottish players. Aaron Hickey, Josh Doig, Lewis Ferguson, etc. 3 players recently that have, and I'm sure there's a couple of others. Yeah, Liam Henderson even, who've gone to sort of middling Italian clubs and forged a good career there. And I think that's brilliant, because I think that really strengthens the Scotland team. Young players getting experience of such a competitive league as Serie A is fantastic. So if I was Stephen Welsh, I must admit I'd be thinking, well, I should probably be playing first team football. If I'm Celtic, I'm delighted if he stays, and he does provide that backup. I think he did enough on Sunday that if Carter Vickers isn't fit and Lagerbielke's just in the door, that Welsh starts the game on Sunday. That would be and that would be, to me, I think it would be potentially poor management for Welsh to have played so well and then not to start. For someone who, although as you say rightly, is fully up to match speed, is literally just in the door. So I think it'll be Navrocki and Welsh on Sunday. Long story short.
Yeah, and I would be fine with that, especially given his performance at Pittodrie. Yeah, it's a very tough sell being the third or fourth choice centre half at Celtic, and I think that's why it would maybe be an easier sell if you're bringing in somebody that is or keeping somebody around that is very much Celtic minded, that knows what it's like to support the club as well. He's happy to take that position, maybe at the expense of his individual career. You know, if he's there or thereabouts, if he's got a role that is very valued within the Celtic within the Celtic system, then he'll be happy with that. That's not to say that I don't think he'll move on in the future. I think in the next couple of years he will want to move on and get first team somewhere else. But for this present moment, it seems as if he's won that fourth choice spot with regard to Liam Scales. I do see him going out on loan again, or maybe even signing permanently with Aberdeen or something like that in the near future. But it seems out of those two players, when you look at the squads, it looks as if he's got the nod over him, especially in a centre half sort of position. Just before we get on to talking about Kyogo and your piece in particular, Alan, if I could just direct everybody once again to the bottom of the screen at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. If you click that link, then you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. You'll get an article from me. I was writing about the fringe players that could make an impact because of the injuries to certain first team players. At the weekend for this weekend coming. There's also a piece from Alan that we're going to talk about with regard to Kyogo's changing role in the team as a bit of a deeper striker. And there's other scouting reports such as the latest signing, Lagerbielke. We'll get big interviews that come from Tony speaking with absolutely everyone to do with Celtic, both in the past and the present, you could say. So yeah, whatever you like with regards to Celtic journalism, it's probably on there. So if you subscribe to the website at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, you would really help us continue to do these free videos. So yeah, just going on to the piece that you wrote yesterday, Alan. It was a really good piece about Kyogo's changing role in the team. Now last season, and the season before, he cut a bit of a lonely figure up front in terms of Ange Postecoglou. You were saying that he sometimes had more shots than he did touches of the ball. But this season, there looks like a big change in his game. He's coming in deeper to get involved with the play. He's becoming another sort of creative midfielder along with Matt O'Reilly. The two of them have created quite a good partnership in the early part of the season. Just what's your overall view on Kyogo's impact so far this season? I know the Ross County game was more of a standout game in terms of his new role than the Aberdeen game, but at the same time he did score in both games. So it's been a couple of pretty successful outings for Kyogo's new tactical tweak in the team, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's been relatively sort of gentle in terms of change that Rodgers has implemented over Postecoglou's system. We saw more so against Ross County, the fullbacks coming in the field a little bit, inverting, as they say. That was still there to some extent, lesser so against Aberdeen. I would say we've gone longer. I think that's partly tactical tweak, but it's also partly a reaction to the way that the opposition have set up. But the one I think really noteworthy change has been the role of Kyogo. I mean, as you say, last season his instructions. I mean, he really distilled the striking role down to that of a goal scorer, and literally very little else. It was remarkable the few touches he would have of the ball, not really getting involved in any build up, never really deviating from the width of the posts, always on the shoulder of the last defender, constantly making runs, constantly moving, rarely getting the ball, but he kept going regardless, and always there to finish off in the 6-yard box. And he distilled and perfected that role. Obviously top scorer. We saw it game after game. The Kyogo finish from just inside the 6-yard box or just outside, one touch, two touch finishes. Absolutely fantastic. I think what Rodgers has seen is that, hang on, I've got an absolutely terrific footballer here, a very intelligent footballer, because again his movement is just phenomenal. Kyogo's, it's world class movement in that sense. And he's thought, well, we need to be using this guy more, but also he's looked at the midfield and thought, I've got players here that are capable of breaking into the box. So, I think it's something that Matt O'Reilly alluded to after the game against Aberdeen. There's two sides to this. One is, Kyogo previously would be right on the shoulder of the defender. He would always be looking forward, always be looking to cut inside. Now he's coming deep a lot, and that's causing some confusion amongst the opposition defence. One of the centre-backs will usually follow him out. That will create a space. And that space at the moment is being taken by either, often Matt O'Reilly or David Turnbull in the first couple of games. And those two, got 3 goals from open play in the first 2 matches. They've had other chances as well by breaking into the box, getting on the end of things. And that's one of the results of Kyogo moving out. But also what you've seen is he's just such a good footballer. He's so quick, he's so skillful. His first touch is excellent. His awareness is fantastic. The assist for Matt O'Reilly's goal against Ross County, where if you watch him, all he does is he literally darts about 2 yards to the right. Carter Vickers sees him straight away and hits him. And without even looking, well, I mean, he obviously did look. Matt O'Reilly's next to him, and then Matt O'Reilly's gone. Kyogo's on the half turn, and first time he's played it into Matt O'Reilly's path. Now, you break that down into the component skills that you need to do all of those things, that and to be able to operate at that speed and accuracy in the final third is exactly what you're looking for at the top level. And therefore, a player that's got all those attributes, you want to get them on the ball a bit more. And it's interesting that he's created, I can't remember, I think it was 6 or 7 chances he's created in the first 2 games, 1 assist. But most of them have come from him dropping into that 10 space, just outside the box, sort of five yards or so outside the box, central position, and feeding other people through, which is normally the ball that he would have been wanting to get on the end of. So that's quite a significant tactical tweak. As I say, last season he got down to completing maybe something like on average 5 or 6 passes a game, which is, I know he's generally only on the pitch for 60, 65 minutes, but still, that's a remarkably low level of involvement. And then against Ross County, he completed 28 passes. So that's almost like having it's a completely different role, really, as a striker. And yet he still managed, as you say, to get 2 goals as well. So it's not degraded his scoring threat either. So I'm super excited about this because to me it kind of instinctively makes sense to have what is probably your best technical player have more involvement in the game. That kind of makes sense to me, providing it doesn't blunt his attacking kind of threat. The only other thing is, how exposed are we to losing Kyogo now? You were an injury away from it being uncomfortable. I do feel that Rodgers potentially sees Maeda as Kyogo's understudy, potentially. They'll look to get someone else in on that left wing. I suspect that's just my feeling of it. That Rodgers would like to see Maeda play. I know we might see similar to last season, or the last couple of seasons, where you'd have Kyogo for 60 minutes, Giakoumakis for 30, that kind of thing. So you're getting 90 minutes of relentless pressure from those forwards and relentless running and movement. Even if the work is done, from 2 people, because Kyogo is going to get more knocks now, going to get more hits by playing this role. We've seen that already against Aberdeen. When he came out and then spun back, there was little elbows and little pushes and so forth. There's going to be more of that because he's getting more involved, and people are going to get wise to it. And they were a little bit against Aberdeen. He wasn't as accurate. I think he completed 8 passes and he gave away 8 passes against Aberdeen. So he didn't quite have that accuracy that he had against Ross County. Better opponent, obviously. Aberdeen's defenders are good, solid defenders in that sense. So, but definitely one I think is a really exciting sort of innovation or tweak to the tactical framework, and I think it'll bear fruit.
Yeah, I think he's one of the 2 players that has really excited me so far this season, especially in an attacking sense. Yes, Navrocki has impressed me defensively, but on the attacking side of things and the creative side of things, I think the 2 players that have really excited me are Kyogo and Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly especially. I mean, I think he's really went up a level this season. That's not to say that the numbers weren't there before. That they were in terms of a defensive output. He seems to be either first or second for Celtic when it comes to pressures and counter pressures, but you're seeing that attacking output really come to the fore. And I think that just shows you the different managerial styles. I think Matt O'Reilly has made it very, very clear that he prefers working under Brendan Rodgers than Ange Postecoglou. I don't even think that's a slight on Postecoglou. It's just a preference for Matt O'Reilly. He likes somebody that is going to compliment him and tell him that he's a great player every second day. You know, that sort of arm around his shoulder. But I think you're seeing the real benefits of that. What is it? 2 goals. 2 goals so far this season. You know, he's created. In fact, yeah, is it 2 goals this season? One against Aberdeen and one against Ross County as well. So you are seeing his output on the team. I'm really excited to see more of his game throughout the season. It looks as if he's settled. There doesn't seem to be any rumours about him wanting to leave. I watched his press conference yesterday. He seems happy to be at the club and a really good speaker as well. You find out a lot about Matt O'Reilly from his press conference. I think he's a very interesting character to listen to and observe. But just off of the 2 games so far and off his performances in pre-season, are you too seeing a change in Matt O'Reilly and a change for the better with regards to his offensive output?
Yeah, and I think, although there might be kind of, as you say, tweaks in terms of, he's obviously breaking into the box a lot more, and again, a very strong technical player. The fact that he struggled to score goals last season was really more down to probably bad luck, poor finishing, etc., more than the fact that he wasn't getting on the end of chances and that he wasn't having chances. He was massively underperforming his expected goals, etc. So that potential, I think, has always been there. But as you said, it can just be as simple as he's a player who Brendan Rodgers clearly sees a lot of value in, and has made that very clear to me. He's playing like somebody who feels he's got the 100% backing of his manager, who looks happy in his work, looks like he's the boss loves him, and that makes such a difference. I mean, listen, all of us in our work would want to be in that situation and feel supported and feel valued, and I think when you do have that backing, it gives you the freedom and the confidence. I mean, as you said, and even in his press conferences, he's coming across far more confidently and more vocal and more opinionated in some ways. Than he had done previously. And a lot of that, I'm sure, is just the self-confidence that he seems to have been given, and who wouldn't want that? And it's an interesting counterpoint, because there might be one or two who are feeling a little bit, oh, I'm not sure if the boss likes me. I'm not sure if, Greg Taylor springs to mind. His first 2 games have looked a bit nervy, a bit unsure of himself, maybe asked to play a slightly different role. If Celtic appear to be in the market for a left back, football's a village. There's no way Greg Taylor wouldn't know that. So he's probably one who's feeling a little bit under threat and a little bit under pressure, and that reflects on performance. In terms of like any employee in any work would do. So it's important. It's a hugely important thing. It's not all about asking people to do different things. Sometimes it's just about how you're made to feel in your workplace, and how much confidence you take from your manager, etc. So I think Matt O'Reilly's been a huge plus on that regard. The potential's always been there, always been obvious, and I think Rodgers recognises that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Murray can bring to the team. He was talking yesterday about how Celtic should be confident even going into Champions League games. This newfound... I think Matt O'Reilly's always been confident, but he seems even more confident and quite sure of himself. I think he's very much settled at Celtic, settled to life up here, and I think you're going to see the best of him this season. A very exciting player to watch, and a player that's really made a positive impact so far at the start of this season. I know you touched on Greg Taylor, but we could come to him as well. It has been, you're right, it has been a very shaky start to life under Brendan Rodgers for Greg Taylor in that left back position. It's not. I don't think it's helped the fact that he's had virtually no competition, especially not in the first game, because Alexandro Bernabe wasn't available for the game, so he was pretty much a shoe-in to play in that first game. But he was fancied in the second game as well, and he had what I thought was one of his poorest games in a Celtic top at Aberdeen. I thought he was noticeably bad, and it's bad when you see a player continually making mistimed passes or inaccurate passes, and you can see the weight. It seemed as if the weight of the world was on Greg Taylor's shoulders at Pittodrie on Sunday. But do you believe that he can? Not that he can get out of the slump, but do you think that he needs extra competition in that position, or do, in all honesty, Celtic need a more traditional left back to come through the door? I know that Celtic have been linked with Quinton Merlin from Nantes. So do you think that is an area that Celtic do need to strengthen? I know we were speaking a couple of weeks ago about areas that Celtic do need to further improve and strengthen in, but is left back becoming even more of a sort of problem area for Celtic?
So, I mean, for me, it always has been, and that's no negative reflection on Greg Taylor. A player that I can simultaneously in my head have got absolutely enormous admiration for him as a professional, for the way he's developed, for the way he took on board what Ange Postecoglou wanted him to do. I think one of the great strengths of Postecoglou was that even though there were clear weaknesses in that team defensively, Ange's system, and especially the way that the team lined up, um, in terms of an attacking shape, such that when they lost the ball in transition, they had the strong core of the two fullbacks tucked in with McGregor and the two centre backs behind. And we protected the centre really well. And Greg Taylor, much like Matt O'Reilly under Rodgers, Greg Taylor under Postecoglou was clearly a player who felt, the manager had his back, was operating in a way the manager wanted him to, and was doing a really good job. Greg Taylor's always had this problem of careless passing. It's always been there. What we saw under Postecoglou is through inverting and having him in the centre of the field, he actually improved massively in terms of his delivery, and actually he had hitherto known ability to play quite long creative passes down in the channels. His through balls to sort of Maeda cutting in became a feature of last season, and it was something that Taylor did fantastically well. Um, I'm not sure Greg Taylor is Brendan Rodgers' ideal mould for a left back. I suspect, as to be fair, we've been talking about for a couple of years now on the Huddle Breakdown. We're looking for something a bit more athletic, a bit more pacey. Because as I say, Greg Taylor's got a lot of wonderful attributes. His main one being his fantastic attitude, his professionalism, his great engine, but he does lack pace. He's not the biggest, so the constant long balls onto that channel we've seen for the last 2 years, etc. And Rodgers, would have seen in the preseason, even in the preseason games, and we saw it actually once or twice against Aberdeen with Shaden Morris. When you've got a left side and you've got two or three players together on that left side that aren't the most athletic, aren't the quickest, aren't the strongest defensively, and players are going to, if Shaden Morris is going to bomb past you, I can guarantee you anyone they come up against in the Champions League is going to have great joy down that side. And Rodgers must see that, and it's an area of the field that Celtic have needed to strengthen for 2 years. As I say, Postecoglou managed round it a little bit by focusing on the team shape, and that worked very well. And Rodgers may have some ideas in line for that, but I think to your point, yeah, it'd be great to have some competition for Greg Taylor. I think definitely the club are looking for that someone in that role, and I suspect they will be looking for someone that's a more athletic player in that position.
Yeah, somebody that's maybe more in the sort of shape and form of Alistair Johnson, you could say, that's able to get up and down. I think once Alistair Johnson comes back into the team, you'll see an even more improved player than the one that was shown under Postecoglou. He was. I don't think he was the best at cutting in with the inverted fullback role and getting into the midfield. I don't think he was doing that as much as Greg Taylor was, but I think in a traditional fullback role, he'll really excel in a Brendan Rodgers team. So maybe somebody on Greg Taylor's side that can do the same would be ideal. Just I know we've got just under 2 weeks until the transfer window does slam shut. Do you think that there? I mean, it's more of a wishful thinking. Do you hope, or do you think that there'll be a lot of business done in the next 2 or so weeks that will fully address the problems that Celtic have in some areas? We talk about goalkeeping position, left back, potentially another midfielder, even another striker. Well, we still need to sort of replace Jota, you could say, because there hasn't been anybody coming in that would sufficiently, I think, fulfil the numbers that Jota brought season in, season out with regard to his double digits and goals and assists. So do you think there will be a lot of business done in the next 2 weeks, or is that just wishful thinking and we'll maybe only get 2 or 3?
Well, no, I think 2 or 3 would represent good business if those 2 or 3 were starter
True.
level of players. I you never say never, right? I mean, you don't know what opportunities present themselves. I think for starters, there's a huge piece of work to be done that we've not made a great progress on. I'll be honest, in actually getting players off the wage bill in terms of that aren't in the plans. That's the first thing. So we need to get rid of players that just aren't in the plans. Really, that still is on the to-do list and needs to be done. Otherwise, we're just carrying far too many players. It's too expensive. Can't afford all the wages and all that stuff. In terms of, I believe the club is looking for starters in a number of positions. So I'd be hopeful that, as you say, I think we're done at centre back, but I think goalkeeper, left back, we need more legs. We need more legs to support Callum McGregor in midfield. If Callum McGregor is going to be the conductor, if he's going to be the tempo setter, if he's going to play in most games, then you need to have legs around him. You can't, we've got too many midfielders that are maybe good technicians, not necessarily give you that athleticism and ability to come back, defend, and transition. Again, I'm thinking about Champions League here. I'm not thinking about SPFL. That's the sort of measurement really in terms of the criteria. So we definitely need that. And arguably, although we've bought a few wingers, if you accept my point that I think Rodgers will see Maeda as being a striker, not a winger, then, like you say, a more sort of direct replacement for Jota, I think, is needed as well. So if we got 4 starter level in those 4 positions, I would be absolutely delighted. That's maybe asking a lot, but the funds I think should be there. I think we need to recalibrate the wage bill, and we need to get a bunch of players off of it. There's arguably 7, 8 players that could easily leave in that sense. Easier said than done, obviously. If we do, that's a lot of business to do in 2 weeks, though. So that's probably a bit ambitious. Might take more than one window to do all that. But that would be my sort of ideal to do list. But as I say, maybe a lot of work for 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's a lot of business, but I think as Celtic fans, we like to be dreamers, and even in the sort of transfer window as well, we'd like to be surprised with that sort of thing. Before we finish up today, I realise it's been 42 minutes, and if you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, if you look at the bottom of the screen, subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. If you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and you'll get loads of Celtic-minded journalism, opinion pieces, scouting pieces, match reaction, big interviews, you name it. We've probably got it on the website. We're currently running £4 for 4 months of a subscription offer. So if you are interested, then please give us a shot for £4 for 4 months. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you help us create more of these free videos and the pre-recorded videos as well at the weekends. Alan, thank you very much. Before we go, where can people find you if they haven't already watched your stuff or viewed your stuff online?
Yeah, sure. So on Twitter, Celtic by Numbers. I've got a website as well, where I do blogs on there, and then the Huddle Breakdown is the podcast, which is weekly. Although we're trying to do a match review as well, so we're trying to do 2 a week for this season. So if you go on wherever you get your podcasts from and search for the Huddle Breakdown, hopefully please subscribe and help us grow that channel. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, any Celtic content is good content to watch, and it is good stuff that you guys do over there. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you to everybody in the comments. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. I think it will be myself and Tony doing the briefing. So we'll catch you tomorrow when we'll be talking more about Celtic and all the news that surrounds the club. But before that, I'll say goodbye everybody and enjoy the rest of your day.